Thank you for being here. You know, I think that one of the things that we develop over time is just the humility to be very careful with our words. And I was struck by what you said with the chairman a few minutes ago, and that was he'd asked you about mindless austerity, mindless sequestration cuts, which was both in your written testimony and your spoken testimony. Do you really mean mindless, or was that a misspeak?
Well, what I mean by that is that we should look to make smart cuts in programs that aren't working.
It doesn't say smart, it says mindless.
Well, and the implication of mindless is that it applies a kind of across-the-board, one-size-fits-all approach to cutting spending, as opposed to what I think we're trying to do in our budget, which is to be much more targeted. There's 100 different places that we're cutting.
But I guess the point...
I think the history was that it was something that was thought to be so bad that it would never go into effect. And so I don't think anybody at the time thought it was a smart strategy for reducing our budget.
I'll let you take that up with Bob Woodward, but anyway, couple quick thoughts. One is, you and with my colleague from South Carolina just a moment ago said you guys were, quote, extending the life of trust funds. I just pulled up the Social Security numbers. I see nothing in here that extends the life of Social Security Trust Fund.
What I was saying is that taking steps to pass comprehensive immigration reform would benefit Social Security and extend the life of the trust funds.
Maybe, maybe not.
CBO last week.
We could argue it.
And the Social Security actuary this week.
Yeah, but mathematically, why don't we take in the entire rest of the world and we'd extend the life of the trust fund by that accounting? I mean, it's a longer theoretical argument, which is if you bring a bunch more people, don't look at the cost, it's to extend the life of the trust fund. But
we do look at CBO did look at
again, it's a longer debate. But I guess my question is, what is real in this budget is borrowing from Peter to pay for Paul. And so you borrow from the Social Security Trust Fund to pay for disability now, and that shortens the life of the trust fund. That's what's in this budget. Immigration reform may or may not pass, but what we do know, as proposed in this budget, is borrowing from Peter to pay for Paul. Why is that a good idea? Because I think we're in a real pinch with regard to these trust funds.
Well, first of all, it would be terrible to let folks who have paid into the Social Security system have their benefits cut by 19% next year. And what we're proposing is a solution that on a bipartisan basis has been done many times before. It has a very, very small impact on the retirement trust fund. I would agree.
If I might claim, which is, it's a big impact. Because I think it's a fiction when we look out at the trust fund numbers. What matters in government is cash flow. And the cash flow goes negative 2019. And if you take out interest, it's in negative cash flow right now. So what we're doing is we're exacerbating that trend line with regard to future borrowings based on, again, borrowing from something that's either now negative cash flow or going to go negative cash flow in the immediate future, which plays straight into the difference between, you just quoted CBO. You've quoted CBO throughout testimony. The place where you don't quote CBO is in economic projections, because as you know, there's about a $2 trillion delta between where CBO is and where you guys are with regard to economic projections over the 10-year period. So if we actually run by the CBO numbers, your budget's about $2 trillion out of balance.
Actually, we're quite close in our economic projections to CBO. But
well, no,
I think the larger, where I think we can agree, Congressman.
Quite close, it's $2 trillion is quite close?
On the economic projections, that's not accurate. But
that is accurate.
I think where we can agree
where is that inaccurate?
I'd be happy to spend time afterwards talking about the specifics of where we are relative to CBO. I think the important point is where we agree is that while Social Security isn't a primary driver of our deficits and our debts, it is something that we ought to look at by doing a reallocation.
I've got 5 seconds.
The trust funds
are it for the record, which is the budget this year increases government spending, revenue by 16.7% and expenses by 7%. Why is it a good idea? And I'd love to get this in written response. for
Mr.
government
Donovan.
to grow faster than people's paychecks.
Mr. Donovan will be able to respond to that in written form. The gentleman's time has expired.